heart's a page woven through the moments, the struggles and the change. No scripts, no filters, no lines to rehearse, just real people sharing all the beauty and the hurt. These are the threads that connect you and me, honest conversations lived authentically. Every voice matters, every journey shines through. Real stories, real people, unscripted and true.
Good morning. Welcome back to Building on Threads. If you're wondering where you are, don't worry, you're in the right place. We used to be the Universal Heart, but we've rebranded, refreshed, and we're ready to get back to sharing stories that matter. To kick things off, I have a very special guest today, one who isn't just a partner in what we do, but a truly dear friend. You know, sometimes the best things in life start with a ping in your inbox. Mark and I actually met because of a random email asking if our organization would be interested in running a program. That one little note turned into a friendship and a collaboration. Today, I'm sitting down with Mark Wilson. Mark is a bit of a triple threat. He is an entrepreneur with 30 years of global experience. He's an adventurer and an author who literally sailed around the world and wrote a book about it called Go West. And he's also a philanthropist with a massive Heart First community. Mark is also the founder of the Money Project right here in North Bay, where he focuses on giving people the fair shot they deserve. We're talking today about the future, the past, and the road that led Mark back here. So, Mark, I want to thank you for being here and always backing us when it counts. And let's get into it. You're welcome. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Well, yes, I'm English by birth. I was born in London in 1967, which was a long time ago now. And I had an interesting background because I was born to a family that in sort of English language may be sort of considered middle class. But we had no money. My mum and dad divorced when I was very young, and my mum brought up 4 kids as a single parent. And I never really got the full story, but I didn't have any contact with my father, and she didn't get any support from him. And so she brought us up in starting out in a flat above a pub, and she was doing a degree back in the days when you didn't have to pay for university, and working bits and pieces here and there. And I do remember things being very tight. And so whereas we had a pretty difficult childhood, challenging but interesting. I mean, I was brought up with a lot of belief and confidence that the world was available to me, even though we didn't come from much sort of privilege. It was interesting. I got a scholarship to a boarding school, which was a fee-paying, very expensive school, which I got a full scholarship to and so that gave me a sense of confidence, even though I came from very different backgrounds to the other kids. But there was no question of me ever going to university. It never really came up in my thinking or expectations. I didn't really know people that went to university. I didn't go to university. I was quite interested in business, although I didn't quite know what that meant. I pretty much went out to work at 17.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize you left to work so young.
Yeah, I left. Yeah, yep.
So what was your first job then?
So my first proper job, which was kind of a proper 9-to-5 job, is I got a job in a commercial finance company. And a niche part of finance is what's called invoice discounting or factoring. And this is a way of lending money to businesses by giving them advances against money that's owed to them. So you effectively take the invoices owed to the company and you lend money against them. And then the finance company that I worked for would go and make sure those invoices got paid by the people ultimately supposed to be paying them. This was a nascent industry back in the early 80s when I would have started there as a sort of very junior management trainee. In fact, I didn't start as a management trainee. I started in the post room where I was opening the mail. In those days, you'd get the payments by check, and you'd get like 100 letters a day, and you'd have to sort all the checks out into piles. And so I was a clerical assistant, but then I got on their management trainee program, and it was a pretty amazing business because they sent me around all of their departments, really learning all sides of finance. So everything from sort of accounting to credit control to some of the site visits and audits that we did. And of course, all of the customers that we dealt with, we were a sort of a lender of last resort. So most of them were businesses that were in trouble. And we had quite a few frauds when we were there, where people were fictitiously creating invoices and borrowing money against them. And so it was it was a very big learning curve for me. And I spent 3 years there from 17 to 20 and learned a huge amount in that time. Didn't get any money or anything, but I was properly paid, and it was a good job. And it taught me some really great business fundamentals from someone that didn't otherwise really have any decent education.
Mm-hmm. It's funny hearing that, because in the conversations that you and I've had and things I've heard, when you've been talking to youth and things, a lot of that original experience comes out in what you do now.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't connected that piece, because I heard about you working in Hong Kong, I think it was, and different places, but I hadn't heard that, kind of your origin.
Yep. No, that was very much just my origin. And an interesting thing happened.
I'll be right back. I'll cut this out. Guys, off. Worst timing in the world.
It's okay.
I'll cut this part out, but
so
yeah,
I'll move on. So an interesting thing happened to me when I was working at the commercial finance company that was actually very impactful on my life. They had an opportunity to send 5 of their top executives every year to what was like an industry learning management course, which would have an exam at the end of the year. And it was designed for senior executives in an industry that was trying to standardize itself and set standards and set benchmarks and find who the best executives were. And the year that my 3rd year of working there, they were supposed to put their 5 top executives in. The company was going through some kind of takeover, or there was some challenge happening in the company at the time. Anyway, my boss at the time advocated for me to go on this course, which was unheard of for a 19-year-old to be sent on this course with all these senior top executives who were all experienced lawyers, accountants, what have you. But he insisted. He said, this boy's got talent, and we want to send him on the course, and he'll represent the company well. Anyway, so I got sent on this course, which was 2 weeks of residential learning, a bunch of studying, some exams at the end of the year, and I worked pretty hard at it. And I think I came in the top 5 nationally of the results. That was pretty outstanding, because these were all very, very senior executives. And so the company was kind of very pleased and proud that I had one of the top results there. And I remember the boss got me into his office, and he said, listen, okay, you're going to be moved into the fast stream. You're going to become a junior account manager. And by the way, just so you know, you get access to a mortgage at discounted rates, and you get a company car, and your salary is going to go from X to Y. So for me, it was wow, I've made it. I'm good. I'm fantastic. And my boss, the guy that put me on the course, called me down into his office. And there was a guy called Mark Connolly, who was a very gruff, tough Scotsman. And he said, Mark, if you don't quit, I'm going to sack you. I'm going to make sure that you're out of here, because there's no way on earth you should be taking that job. You have your whole world in front of you. You can go off and you can do things. You can always come back. You have that certification in your back pocket. But if you take a mortgage and a car, you'll be married in a year, you'll be stuck. And he said, you've got more talent and ability, and you deserve to do something else. And I said, well, I've always wanted to go to Australia. I've always wanted to see a bit of the world and, do different things. And he said, well, let's make that happen. And between him and me, I think he kind of pushed me a little bit. I made the decision. I borrowed a bit of money. I didn't have any money, but I borrowed a bit of money, and I got £500 and an air ticket, and I got a visa to go to Australia for 2 years. under a sort of an exchange program thing. And I got a work visa in Australia, and I went and had 2 fantastic years in Australia that totally opened my mind up to the world and the possibilities and what could happen for me. And so it was a very, very smart guy who took a very sort of tough line on me, saw a bigger picture than what was immediately in front of him. It would have been very beneficial for him to have me stay in the company. And he saw something in me, and he gave me a real push in a good direction. So it was a real lesson in mentorship to me, and making, having the confidence in making decisions and showing people what's available to them, even though they don't believe these things could be for them. I didn't know you could just go to Australia and do these things. And
yeah, that's really, again, just knowing you, I see a lot of that come out in the way you mentor other people now. And young people in particular. I've noticed you have a fond for young people who may not think they have those opportunities.
I do. I think I really like meeting young people. I look back at myself at that age, and I was maybe a little bit brash and confident on the outside, but inside not so brash and confident. I knew that I was interested in business, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have any money. I didn't really know many people. But I got little pushes in the right place by the right people who did believe in me. And they gave me a lot of confidence in those pushes. And I found that when I got pushed somewhere and I went off and did it, sometimes I had to be persuaded a little bit into doing it because maybe I was a bit underconfident in some areas. But when I went off and did stuff, man, did it open my eyes, and did it allow me to realize there's another step further to here, and I can go and do something really interesting.
Right. So with all of these things, you've traveled the world, you've worked in different places, you've sailed around the world, all of these different things that you've done. Why North Bay?
Well, I mean, firstly, sort of from practical experience, I was living and running a business in Hong Kong, and I met a lovely lady in a bar, Valentine's Day in 1997, who was working as a teacher in the Canadian International School. And she said she came from a little town called North Bay. I mean, I'd never been to Canada at that point, let alone where North Bay was. So we ended up getting married, and we had a son. We got married in 2006, had a son in 2007. And we had some family illness issues around that time, which meant that we had to leave Hong Kong quite suddenly and come to Canada to get treatment in Toronto. And we decided to leave as a family and come to Canada. And I had to effectively restart my business career because we left in a big hurry in the middle of a financial crisis, and literally had to upend all of our roots and move to Canada. And what we did is we moved temporarily to North Bay to my wife Gillian's father's house. He had a basement with a couple of rooms. I was 40 years old. My wife was 39. Our son was 8 months old. And we lived in a basement in North Bay up on somewhere near Airport Hill. And I restarted a business career here. Now, what I did to start with is I needed to put down roots, and I needed to get busy, and I needed to find a way. And so I bought a beat up old Hyundai Santa Fe, and I started commuting down to Toronto, and I left North Bay on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning. I got a bed set right by Honest Ed's in Toronto on Spadina when Honest Ed's was still there. And I would go down on a Monday, come back on a Friday, and literally spend the week sort of knocking on doors. I'd never been to Canada before I moved here. Right. And I'd spend a week knocking on doors and going to see people and trying to get a business started. So I had interesting when I listened to your introduction, it sounds, wow, he's had a great life, fantastic. He's made it. And it was not a linear journey. It was not a linear journey at all. So there were lots of struggles and setbacks. A big one of those was age 40, finding myself living in a basement in North Bay with really no money to speak of, having had a glittering career beforehand and thinking that I was sorted. And, what you often find in life is when one thing goes wrong, a lot of things go wrong. And a lot of things went wrong, which ended up me moving to North Bay in Toronto. Anyway, how did I get to be in North Bay? So we once I got a business up and running, it necessitated us moving to Toronto. So about 2009, 2010, we would have moved down to Toronto as a family. We rented a house down there. But we always came back to North Bay for family events and for sort of holidays. We'd come and spend time here. We love coming up to North Bay. And I never liked Muskoka, just it's not my cup of tea. And looked at Caledon, King City, and of course, back in the day, we couldn't afford to have a second place, but we did have our eyes. Well, when we can do, what would we do? And we decided that North Bay, even though it was a bit further, I fell in love with North Bay, and of course, it's my wife's hometown. Very typical to many North Bay people. My wife spent her young years trying to get away from North Bay. That was a dream to get away from North Bay. But of course, later in life, she very much wanted to come back here. And she still has family here. She has very, very strong family roots. Mm-hmm. And in 2019, a house came up for sale on Campbell Avenue, which is a lovely street on Lake Nipissing in West Ferris. And it was a really beat up old house, but on a nice piece of lakefront property. And I remember going to see it with my wife. And at the time, it was before COVID, property wasn't really selling fast in North Bay. Mm-hmm. I went to see it with my wife, and she gave me a clip around the ear and said, "You've got to buy this house. Don't cheap out on the price. There's other people interested." She just thought I'd put in some low-ball offer because I wasn't bothered. She said, "This is the place for us." And she insisted that I went in above asking, which I thought was totally unnecessary. And actually, we only just got it because somebody else went in above asking, and there was lots of offers on it. Anyway, we were very fortunate to buy the house. And long story short, we used that as a sort of a summer house for a number of years. We got to live here during COVID, which was a really nice experience. And then we eventually actually completely rebuilt the house last year, and we now live here permanently.
Right. So you still commute down south, though? Do you find that?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to keep our house in Toronto, and I used to live 75% in Toronto, 25% in North Bay, and now that's reversed. But I have my trips to Toronto are less and less frequent, and I like going down there. It's a necessity in terms of keeping an eye on various business interests and what have you, but actually my home and my heart is North Bay. So North Bay is very much home. That's where I can't wait to get in the car really early on a Saturday morning after I finish my work and get back up to North Bay. Mm-hmm. We've built a lovely house up here. I love the community. It's just a great place to be. And I always find this is maybe somewhere where I am very lucky later in life. If you can if you can live in North Bay with some interests outside of North Bay that, keep you active and keep you in a bigger community as well, that's a nice balance for me. But more and more, my time is exclusively based around North Bay, and it's very much certainly where my heart is.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember in the early days when we were talking, it was very much, I'm in town this day.
Yes.
I was trying to fit everything in one day. But it was always, a pleasure when we did get to connect. And, you've done some work with my old venture and our youth, and we've really appreciated that over time. So you started a new initiative here, and I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. What it is, whether it's, up and running and ready, because I know it's been a long time coming. We've had many discussions about it. I'm excited to see the webpage up.
Yeah. So it is very much up and running, but I'll take you back to when you used to see me occasionally when I was living in Toronto, coming up here. So one of the first ventures I did was in collaboration with your organization, which was great. And we did a program where I was collecting disused and out of service laptops from businesses, refurbishing them, loading them up with software. We'd bring them up here and run classes in your facility where we'd run workshops with young people and teach them computer skills, and they'd each get a free laptop at the end of it. And I really enjoyed that. It gave me, I'd been thinking for a while, if I'm going to come up and spend more time in North Bay, I need and want to be involved with the community, number one. Number two, I want to start to understand who's doing what the challenges are, how I can help, where, I have a limited skill set in a certain place, and how I can possibly deploy that to the greater good. I also felt that I know that my wife Gillian, her family have been in North Bay for generations. They've always been very kind of civic community minded. Her grandfather, I guess it would be, was John Kennedy, who was related to WKP. They were very much kind of involved with the creation of what's now North Bay and a lot of the building and insurance and art galleries and what have you. So there's a rich stream that runs through the family. When we moved up here, I finally, after many years of hard work, felt that I was in a place financially and from a time perspective that I had some time and I wanted to put some time back into the community. I really enjoy meeting people. I enjoy young people. Anyway, long story short, I spent a long time thinking about how best could I run a charity that is involved somehow with promoting the betterment of North Bay. And one of the challenges that I'd really seen here was some of the difficulties that young people face with lack of maybe business opportunities here, lack of funding. They don't have some of the contacts and advantages that I had when I was young. I may not have had much money when I was young, but I had people around me that mentored me, and I had people that were willing to support me. And particularly that happened through my business career. And anyway, so I wanted to start a charity where I could use some of the business experience and skills that I'd brought up and that I'd accumulated over the years, and try and help some young people in North Bay who are wanting to run businesses. So that was my general idea. Not quite sure how to do it, where to do it, but I came across an article in a newspaper, a British newspaper, about 2.5 years ago, about a charity called the S.J. Noble Trust. And the S.J. Noble Trust, I found out, was founded by a guy who lived in a small place called Argyll in Scotland. And if you look Argyll up, it is almost identical to North Bay. Same amount of population. It's a beautiful place, slightly remote from the main city. Got exactly the same challenges with young people leaving. And so I thought this is really interesting. So this guy there was a guy who came from Argyll who'd created a very successful chain of restaurants. And when he passed away, he left behind some money in a trust to create the S.J. Noble Trust. And the S.J. Noble Trust was designed to give interest-free loans to entrepreneurs, young people in the local community who are running businesses for the betterment of the community. So the idea that was the trust would never charge a fee or make a profit. It would spend its money as slowly as possible, and it would regenerate money and recirculate it within the economy by getting these loans paid back. And it would provide funding and mentorship and provide guidance for businesses, for young people, not just young people, but people that are passionate about running a business that don't have access to traditional types of financing. They don't have rich families. They couldn't go to TD and get a bank loan. They may have very challenging backgrounds. Maybe they have addiction issues, and maybe they have a criminal record, or maybe they have something that gets in the way of them being able to push forward and fulfill their dream, which is normally building a small business. It might be a mobile hairdresser. It might be a landscaping business. It might be, we're not looking to find a Google that's going to take over the world and become $1 billion business. We're looking to help and encourage businesses that provide gainful employment in the community, and they provide things which are generally a benefit to the community, services. So, for example, we're not looking to find a company that's importing batteries from China and selling them cheaply. You know, we're really mindful about finding companies that we feel will help the people running the companies, also the communities they're in. So the criteria for us, and so anyway, so this was S.J. Noble, and I thought that is a great idea, and I'm going to replicate exactly that. And I spent quite a lot of time with them. They were very kind to me, the people in the charity, and they spent time showing me how they did things, shared a lot of their documentation with me, talking about what success is and what failure was. One of the key things they shared with me earlier on is they have a 93% repayment rate on their loans, even though they're interest-free and they're non-secured over more than 15 years of making these loans. And they've created hundreds of jobs. And if you take the initial capital and how it's recirculated, it's in the millions of pounds. And so they've had a really profound impact on the community in Argyll in Scotland. And so having spoken to them and spent time with them, I said, I'm going to replicate exactly that in North Bay. And that's the model I've taken on. I've tweaked the model slightly. So, for example, I don't give purely loans. All the loans I give are interest-free, but sometimes I might mix it in with a grant as well. So in an instance where I feel somebody needs a bit of a kickstart, a bit of a turbo boost, I'll put a grant element in there as well. But I spent the last year setting the charity up, founding the charity, doing the website, getting into the community. I went to see all of the sort of the various government agencies currently that provide funding for these kinds of people. So ION, the Business Centre, the North Bay Development Council. There's 4 or 5 different government-funded organisations that don't quite fit exactly the same criteria I'm looking for. Often they fit part of the criteria. But so I don't want to be set up just as the charity that all the ones that fail when those government agencies looking for money come to me. It's not exactly that. It's just different criteria. Some of them just can't take people who don't have a proven business background or who have a criminal record, who have this or have that. So I've said to all of them, listen, I'm looking for people who are genuinely passionate about running a business. I'm looking for people that need help, that need mentorship. I'm looking for people that we can believe in and we can give a chance to, who other people maybe no one's ever trusted them. No one's ever given them a chance in life.
Right.
That's who we're looking for. And we've been up and running now for, I guess, sort of properly up and running for 6 months or so. We have made our first substantial loan to a local landscaper, which has been really interesting for me. There's been a big learning curve going through the process, with the first loan we've given out, but we're now actively looking at 2 or 3 other loans. So with this charity, I have 2 trustees that work with me, but effectively I run the charity. I do all the admin. Every single cent that comes into this charity is being spent on dispersing money to people within the beneficiaries. So I do the admin, me and my friend ChatGPT, we do all of the admin for the charity ourselves. I review all the loan applications. I go and meet all the people. I do all of the due diligence. And from a funding point of view, it's a charity, but it's entirely funded by myself. So I've committed 2 years of funding to the charity, and that's 2 years of actual loan-making funding. That doesn't include the year that I spent setting it up. And my plan is over 2 years to disperse all the money which I've got set aside for the charity. And at the end of it, I want to measure the impact that we've managed to have on the community and make a decision. So where do we go from here? Do we expand it? Maybe get some outside money in? Is it something I just want to continue to fund myself? Or is it something where actually the net effect of what we've done is not what's been intended and we need to tweak what the charity does? Right. But so far, it's been an absolutely fascinating journey for me because I've met lots of people. I've learned so much more about the community than I knew when I first came here. I can see there is a place where we can really help some people, and that's not just time, but it's also mentorship. It's also things like, for example, the landscaper who we made our first loan to has never had any credit facilities. I managed to go to the local Rona store and spend time with the owner of Rona store, understanding why it would be beneficial for everyone for this guy to have a credit account and proper trade facilities at Rona, which really helps his business. It's good for Rona, it's good for him. Yes, charity may have to guarantee those credit facilities for a short time, but it legitimizes his business and it gives him an opportunity to operate at better margins and more professionally. And so that's sort of like a typical example of where we go. It's more than just giving out a loan. We really get involved in trying to see where in the community we can help that business best position itself.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've loved doing it. I've really loved doing it. It's been a little bit more work necessarily than I thought it might be. But with everything in life, you get out what you put in.
Yep. You've given me some good advice over the years, so I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Odd little segue. The young man who got the computer, who was right into coding when we did the computer giveaway, actually lives in my housing complex and has just graduated high school and is in the Army Reserves and looking to go into full-time service.
Oh, so wow.
Quite a stellar young man.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's turned out to be a wonderful, I still remember his face that day going, I've never had anything really new, and to be able to give him a computer was amazing.
It's interesting. Yes, some people never have had something like that given to them with no strings
Mhm.
attached. And speaking to people about the money project, one of the things that I found is that some people are not used to any trust being given to them.
Mhm.
So, the idea of giving them a loan which doesn't have a sort of personal guarantee or sort of some sort of indentured servitude next to it, someone just to say to them, listen, I believe, I'm prepared to give you a break, and understanding that that's not always going to work out. But
Mhm.
if you put trust in people and you take the time that they understand why you're putting trust in them, and that you're very clear and upfront in the trust you're putting in them, that's actually in some ways as valuable, more valuable than the cash itself.
Mhm.
And with the landscaper I've been working with, I just feel he's been up against it for a long time, and not many people have just put trust in him in that same way. And
Amazing.
it's an interesting thing.
It's amazing what happens to somebody's confidence when that happens.
Yeah.
Especially when it's somebody that they don't expect to, come alongside them.
For sure, for sure. And it's really important to let them know that not everything works out, and that's okay. You don't put a burden on them by putting trust in
Mhm.
them. What you do is you give them an opportunity. And I understand myself that this might go sideways, but all we're going to do is go in with good intentions and make
Mhm.
the best of it. So we're going to make good decisions. We're going to communicate well. We're going to do our best to make it work. And if it doesn't work, no one's going to blame anybody. Um, you know, uh, Talk to me again in 2 years and see how that works for me. But
Debate.
that's the intention going in.
Mhm. So, on the life side of your
Mhm.
life, you've done all kinds of adventuring and different things
Mhm.
like sailing around the world. I was amazed when I read that actually. I read it a while ago and kind of went, what? Like, I haven't heard that story yet. But you've done a lot of different things. Do you have anything that you're kind of, outside of business looking to take on, challenges, anything lifestyle, trips, anything interesting going on?
Well, I've
Put you
been
on the spot.
very I've been really lucky in life to have fantastic adventures, and I think the adventures have come from having a sort of confidence to be able to go and try things that are different. And you'd mentioned that, yes, I was part of a crew of a yacht that sailed around the world in what was called the world's toughest yacht race, because it went west about around the world, and it was a tremendous challenge. And interestingly, the reason I went into that was not because I was interested in sailing. I didn't really have much experience in sailing, but I trained very hard for it. But I wanted to find what is a huge challenge to do. And the huge challenge was to sail around the world. I could easily have been climbing a mountain or sailing around the world or doing this or doing that. And
Mhm.
that was the vehicle I found for which to exercise my challenge. Anyway, um, and I was very fortunate to do other, I think I was one of the first foreign language students at Moscow State University after the fall of the Berlin Wall, when I went and lived in Moscow for a year and studied Russian. And again, that was another thing. Did I do it because I was desperate to speak Russian? No, I did it because it was a really interesting period in the world and a time that I wanted to go and have a tremendous adventure. And like with the sailing, it was a real challenge. When I got there, things were a bit harder than I imagined they would be. But we found a way and we got through it.
That's
You
cool.
know, some people have said to me, Mark, the way you've lived your life, there's been all this stuff. How the heck can you cope living up in North Bay? You know, like there's not the same, kind of, you switched off and what have you. And it is a quieter period in my life for sure, because I'm very settled, I'm very happy, very close with my wife and son. And it's a time for launching my son, who's 18, rather than necessarily just doing things myself. But there are things that hanker at the back of my mind, and I'm going through a bit of a phase at the moment. I've been learning how to swim properly. So I've swum for years. I like swimming. But I found this fantastic organization in North Bay, the Tour de Trout, run by
Mhm.
Johan Rousseau. And so I started swimming with the Tour de Trout. And of course, it's a bit my nature, but I started swimming with them thinking I was fit, because I'm very fit, but I'm not a great swimmer. And they're all way ahead of me. And I did it a couple of years ago, and they're way ahead of me. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on here? Like, people with totally different body shapes and sizes, and they're just, 100 meters ahead of me after we've been swimming for a while. So I've been working on my swimming. So I did the training sessions in the Y this spring, and I'm watching YouTube videos about trying to become a better swimmer. And there's a part of me that I see videos of people swimming the English Channel. Now, English Channel looks brutal because it's like 10 to 15 hour swim, depending on how fit you are. It is cold, it is dark, there's jellyfish all over the place. It just looks absolutely awful. And there's a real part of me that's got obsessed by watching videos of people swimming the English Channel and wondering if I can do it. At the moment, could I swim an hour? Yes. Could I swim an hour and a half? I might struggle. And that's in decent conditions, flat, maybe with someone next to me, what have you. I mean, I don't even know where the leap is from there to swimming 15 hours in such a miserable place, or why I'm even thinking of it. Anyway, so this is at the back of my mind at the moment. And I hope my wife never watches this podcast, because I've never said it to anybody else. See, so I'd like to do that, and I'd like to
have different thoughts.
Yeah, I think so too. I should go crazy if she even knew I was thinking of it.
I mean, maybe start with Short Lake, swim like Nipissing or something.
Yeah, I know. I got to. So anyway, so at least I want to become a decent swimmer in the Tour de Trout first. So let's just bite off a bit as I can chew it. So I'd like to do the London Marathon. That's another thing. I'm not a great runner, but I run from time to time, and I can kind of handle it. And that's something which is, even though I've lived out of England for most of my life, England's still very much, I'm a Canadian citizen and what have you, but England's very much my roots and my home. And to do the London Marathon, I think, would be fantastic. So if I was going to do a marathon, it would be London.
That's funny, because my business professor in college was actually a marathon runner. He used to do all the big ones down south, like around the Bay and all of those ones. I think he did Disney a couple of times, but that was his kind of stress release, right? You'd have a bad day at school and we'd be, what are you doing tonight? And he'd be, well, I'm going to go run. What? But I mean, everyone has different releases, right?
I do. For me, like, physical challenge is really important in my life, because I do like to keep fit, look after myself. I've been very fortunate. I've got a nice life. I enjoy it. I got to look after my health to make sure I can enjoy it the most. And part of that is physical exercise, whether it's running, going to the gym, swimming. And I also find that for sure. And I find that physical exercise is just very good for my spirit and soul.
Yeah, it is. It's we still daily try to get out for at least a good walk with Casper and different things. But it's kind of a refresh, right? To get out and just do something.
Yeah, it's another thing we have in common is our love for dogs. And I have my border collie, and I take him out a couple of times a day, and that's a really, really big part of my life, and a big part of my life in North Bay. And it's a big part of me getting out and meeting people, because you always chat to people when you've got dogs.
Yeah, you caught me the one day at the waterfront.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be in Toronto, and all of a sudden you were. But no, it's always good. I remember running into you when you least expected it, and that was kind of your thing. You popped up walking through the mall or at the waterfront, or I was like, is that no? But it was always nice, because it was a chance to catch up and just kind of hey, what's going on? And you were always there with advice for us, which we 100% appreciated. So but I think we're just about at our time limit. For people listening tend to drift off about this point. Is there anything you want to add about anything you're doing?
One thing I'd just like to finish up with is the charity, the Money Project, is really important to me. And one of the challenges I have is getting access to really good people that need funding, that have ideas or have businesses that need supporting. And, there could be someone that watches this podcast that might want to get in touch. And if so, there is a website, which is Moneynorth.ca. And at the website, you can go and fill in a form or just get my contact details, and all contact Carrie and put her in touch with me, and you'll put them in touch with me. But even the opportunities to get out and meet people in the community because they've heard this and they'd like to speak to me because they've got an idea or they're doing something or there may be an area I can help.
Absolutely. We can definitely connect people. We, as you know, have a lot of young people just starting out in their kind of ventures, and, people we come into contact on the daily. So absolutely. And, for anyone that's listening, I would encourage you, if you have an idea or you think that you may have a good idea or you're running a business that's struggling, like we were, reach out to Mark, because the mentorship, even just in talking things through, was amazing. There's been many times he's come alongside and said, have you thought about this? Or, maybe do it this way, which was always, and honesty goes a long way. And Mark is very honest about, kind of anything you bring to him, and his thoughts, but also doesn't get down on you when you choose not to follow them. Which I've done several times.
For sure. Yeah.
But no, definitely, I'm going to correct the link that I have in the header. I didn't realize I had it wrong, so I'll correct that to Money North.
Yes.
And then I'll post the links as well with the podcast.
Thank you.
And see who we can connect to you, because it is a really good venture that I could see a lot of people, taking advantage of and getting involved with.
For sure. Yeah, and I want to wish you luck with this podcast. I've followed your ventures for quite a few years, and I've always been super impressed with, you put a lot of time and dedication into the things that you've done, and you've achieved a lot. So I'm a big supporter of everything you do. Amazing.
I appreciate it so much. And we'll be in touch about the magazine.
Thank you.
All right. You have a wonderful day, Mark.
Thanks, Carrie. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.